All right, we'll go ahead and get going while the guys are looking for some seats. Most of you are familiar faces. Most of you know me. So I thought it was important to do this, but first we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm going to speak for a bit, turn it over to Joel for a bit. Joel, by the way, is our Public Works Director, also retired Navy and veteran as well. And then when we're all done, because I think we'll answer a lot of questions when we're speaking, then we'll answer any additional questions that you might have. So first, and I got a whole bunch of notes, but so I don't forget anything. So first, I'll give you a little bit of history. Okay, so the village has obviously supported the veterans for a long time, and I think I see Margie back here. So she reminded me that the mayor's golf outing, the mayor gets to choose who the beneficiaries of the golf outing are. And so when I first got in, I changed it to the veterans, and actually the then board tried to eliminate the golf outing completely. So we kept it, and in the last 5 or 6 years' time, we raised about $150,000 for veterans for that. So then they followed that up by trying to eliminate veteran services, and I know Tom was there for that mess, and we fought to keep it. So we kept all of that. And overall, the residents of Orland Park have been very generous. They've given our veterans organizations, the VFW, the Legion, access to the building, to this entire building, which still is a village building, obviously. We pay the utilities, the janitorial, the maintenance, and all the capital costs. So, to my knowledge, no other municipality provides all of that for their veterans groups. Typically, most of the areas, the VFW or the Legion, they have their own building, they pay for all of that. So we pay for all that. As a member of both organizations, I'm grateful that the residents do that. About 2018, it was pretty clear that we needed to consolidate our buildings. We did a cursory review of our buildings. We knew we had too many. We knew we had some that were old. And we knew we were going to have to consolidate. At that time, it was fairly clear that eventually, we didn't know when, but eventually this building was probably going to be past its useful life. So, at least as far as the village was concerned, because of all the other buildings that we have. So I relayed this to both the VFW and the Legion at the time. We offered to sell this building for $1. I also offered at that time, as you know, we were going through the whole gaming thing, right? So we offered to create a special liquor class and gaming class so that gaming could be offered here, which would help raise money to offset the expenses of upkeeping the building. So we offered all that. This was declined. I totally understand. As a member, I understand. It's a pain to deal with all that stuff, so I get it. But it was something that we did offer. So the facility assessment was completed, last year, Joel? The beginning of last year? It was completed for all the buildings. And we'd already demolished the Davidson Center, as you know, because it really just didn't have much use anymore. It was past its useful life. We also decided it's $6.2 million, I believe, to upgrade the cultural center. And, you probably couldn't build that building for $6.2 million. We really don't have much use for it. We don't do that much in it, and we could consolidate the stuff that was in there. So we did offer it to the school district because they were looking for additional space. Again, for $1. We would have kept the parking lot and kept maintenance of that. They declined, so we're going to demolish that building and expand the park. Old Village Hall, which houses the museum, that requires about $1 million in repair. Not a lot of unique visitors to the museum, so we felt as a board, and I think there was also an entire working group on this, that it was better to move the museum artifacts to the newly acquired Humphrey House, which fell into our care. It's a National Historic Site, so we do need to maintain it. And it fell into our hands because the Historical Society went belly up, and in John Humphrey's will, he said if that ever happens, it's to come to the village. So we have a duty to care for that historic landmark. We also have the Stellwagen Farm. We also have Bowley Farm. So we made some decisions to move those artifacts into Stellwagen Farm, into Humphrey, where they'll be seen more regularly than in that museum. We also built an area in the Village Hall to see those museum artifacts, and I know for a fact more people have seen them in the Village Hall in the short time they've been there than we had going through the museum. And then also we agreed with the library to have an area to see those artifacts. But we're still going to keep all the artifacts, we're just going to rotate them and rotate the artifacts that we have. So, so we also have several pump buildings that are kind of beyond their useful life. We use them for storage. We will eventually get rid of those as well. The vet center obviously is also on that list. So the staff came to us and they said, hey, this is going to be $400,000 or $398,000 to be exact between now and 2030 in work that's needed here. And as Joel pointed out today, we just had to spend a bunch of money on some air conditioning because it went down in here for this meeting. So, so there was that expense. And so they came to me and they said, hey, you know, we don't give a building to any other groups. We can create a meeting area for the groups and provide all of that like we do for other groups. And, but we need to get rid of this building because it's just not efficient to be holding this building, paying electric, paying gas, paying everything that we pay here, and all the maintenance on it. I said, you know, from their perspective, to be fair, that it was the right recommendation, okay? But I represent the residents of Orland Park. I think residents of Orland Park have made clear they want to support the veterans. And I said, let's find a better solution and find a place for our veterans groups. What options do we have? So Joel here came up with a great solution, which is the building down the street here, which is the, currently the park's maintenance staff is in that building. However, they're going to consolidate to the recreation building because we're going to be doing some things in there to open up some space. There's a lot of unused space there. There's still the jails down below that need to be cleaned out to offer storage and things like that. So Joel said, well, why don't we consider putting them over there? And the nice thing about that is, has a new deck, has a new roof, basically very little to do in the next 20 years there at a minimum. So it's in much better shape. The other nice thing about it is it's on open lands. So it will always be in the village, no matter what. It's an open lands park space. The other thing, obviously, has a lot of open land and park right there. As a member's perspective, I said, hey, this is good for picnics. The deck's good. It's got a full kitchen, which I know is useful. I know we do cookouts from time to time, and we're sitting out on a little, sidewalks. So you'll actually have a place where you can do all of that. Also, you have more parking there. So, if other units consolidate in, we get bigger meetings, you'll be able to park more effectively over there. The other nice thing is, because the maintenance garage is there and will stay there, you're always going to have a parking lot that's upkept. So again, the space isn't going anywhere. So that seemed like a good idea. So Joel reached out to the various groups. He got my input of things I think we needed, and so I thought they did a pretty good job. So here's a picture of what it looks like. So the main floor is about 200 square feet smaller than this floor, but then you have a basement that's just as big, which allows for a lot of storage. You also have some upstairs space as well, correct? So what we have here is the floor plan for the main floor and the basement floor plan. So and I'll let Joel go into a few more details in just a second, but ultimately, removing these interior walls and offices, which are easy for our staff to do, basically creates a space right here that's about 100 square feet bigger than what we have in here, okay? If you add this other space over here, this L-shaped space, if you need a little bit more space, you're adding about a total of 350 square feet in your main meeting space, okay? You've also got a full kitchen, which is obviously helpful if you do cookouts or picnics, which is we try and attract younger members. I think is a good thing. You got deck space, so you can sit out on the deck, and it's obviously in a forested area, so you can sit out on the deck and not be beaten down on the sun as well. It's got far more parking like we talked about. The other thing is that storage was an issue. Now, one of the problems we have here is this storage building, as we know, is kind of falling in, needs a lot of work. So we're building a new storage facility over at the maintenance garage. So it's complete, and it's in bad shape as well. So we talked first about adding to that building and giving you space inside that. Joel suggested instead we do a separate building on that space. At the end of the day, it was $398 for the work needed here between now and 2030, plus it'd still be, still there's probably more stuff to come after that. This costs somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000, and Joel thinks with inside personnel doing work, it'll be less than that. So it's much less expensive to go to that facility. So basically, we will also relocate everything, all of the memorabilia will get relocated over there. So we'll take care of that. You don't need to worry about moving things and all of that. So all that stuff will be handled. At this point, I'll turn it over to Joel, and he can talk about some of the spacing stuff because he talked to everybody about what the various needs were.
The other area is storage. If you looked around in this building, there's a couple closets that you have storage. You also have some things that you store in the garage. So like the mayor said, we would have two sections that is comparable to what you currently have for the storage in your garage as a separate building. When we looked at the storage, we also looked at what are your key things that you use all the time, and we created two areas. That this is an office currently, and we would separate that into two groups, so the lockable space for both groups, and that you can store the key things that you use more often, such as the uniforms, the honor guard rifles, and some other things that you guys use on a daily basis. Then in the basement, we've created some storage spaces that it might be items that you may pull out once a year, maybe a couple years, but you have a lot of extra space now to store whatever you want in that basement. And again, we'll move it all with our facility staff, but we've set up some zones. So the blue zone right here is showing Legion, and there will be a lockable door, obviously, for their area. VFW, we have existing room here in the basement. We'll set up even a cage so you can have a locked area there. And Voices of Veterans, we'll have a space for them as well. So really there's lots of, we've tripled the amount of storage what you currently have at this building into this facility. Plus you have your grand meeting area, like the mayor mentioned, upstairs. And I think we will, a couple things from the exterior, we'll have 3 flags. Currently there's only 1 flag pole there. We'll obviously improve that with the 3 flags. There's a couple things on the exterior. We can always move those, the symbolic, the different Army, Air Force, the symbols and stuff like that.
So thanks for that, Joel, and thanks for all the hard work, on all of this. Ultimately, I'm a member, I'm a life member of both organizations. I'm grateful for the residents for doing this and for the residents for continuing to do this. I think it's important to the residents, which is why the board and I both we approved that. Okay. I also realize some people do not like change. So I want to remind everyone that of all people, veterans should understand change. So me personally, my first 3 training bases were gone before I even left the military. And my fighter training unit moved as well. In fact, I was part of moving that. So Lackland Air Force Base I went to, now it's at Maxwell Air Force Base. Mather Air Force Base, Sacramento doesn't exist anymore. The training's now down in Jacksonville, Florida. Homestead Air Force Base in Florida, water survival training. Now it's done in the middle of Spokane, Washington. I still don't know how they do water survival training in Spokane, Washington. Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, best place in the world to train to fly fighters. They moved our units out to North Carolina. Okay, 4 of the squadrons I've flown in don't exist anymore. So I mean, this happens, and we have to look at what's best for the entire all of Orland Park, and we're still finding a spot that, in my opinion, personally, I think is a better spot in the long run. Of course, I will reiterate, if either the Legion or the VFW or a combined group don't want to move, you can still purchase this building for $1. We're not going to let you purchase it and resell it to go make money. There'll be a covenant that says you can't do that. It's got to be used for veterans, but you're happy to do that. It's just that if we're going to provide maintenance and all of that and electric utility, we need to consolidate our spaces. So that's what we're going to do. As a mayor, as a veteran, as members of these organizations, I'm proud of our staff, our board, for providing this for everyone and coming up with a solution that worked, which I think works. So now I'll open it up to questions.
Well, you had talked about, Joel, moving everything from outside. My name is Margie Owens-Klotz. I'm the mother of the Eagle Scout who built the Captain Ron Zinn Memorial Garden out in front. Ron Zinn was a 2-time U.S. Olympian, West Point class of '62, and Orland Park's first to die in Vietnam. Keith, how will the memorial be moved?
So Margie, I really appreciate it. And as you probably know, Margie's father was mayor from what, 83 to 89, right?
No, he died in 92.
Oh, okay.
Tom, when was he mayor?
Forever. So he was mayor. He was mayor for some period of time. And Margie, you worked for the village for what, since like 87 till 37 years. So since the mid 80s. So and to Margie's credit and her family's credit, technically doesn't live in Orland Park, but still has been very connected to Orland Park and doing all this. And so it's great that. But to your point, and unfortunately now you're going to let the secret out of the bag, but there were 2 other members killed in Vietnam as well. So I think there were 3 total.
It's four.
Eddie Novak lived in Orland Township. He lived in technically.
So as far as I know, there were 3.
Kids with Orland Park addresses, but Ron Zinn was the first.
Right. So there were. So let me finish. So there were 3 people that live in the village of Orland Park that were killed in Vietnam. So we'll not only move the memorial, but we'll make it bigger and for all 3 of the people that were killed in Orland Park. So you had Richard Tesman and George Seichert, I think, was the other person that was killed. Seiler. So you have those 3 people. So we'll take it, make it even better, and rededicate it over there. So to remember those 3 specifically that gave their lives, but of course to remember all of the Vietnam veterans as well. So.
Yeah, I've got a dollar question, I guess. Since all the buildings that you were talking about are expenses, right? They're spending money on it, they really have no value coming back. There's no revenue coming right off of those.
Well, yeah, there was.
So what is the total savings on doing this?
Well, so the capital costs, like I said, were $398,000 to repair this building between now and 2030. So there's $400,000 that has to go in this building to repair it. As far as the utility costs, we're going to have the utility costs at either building, but that building's going to stay no matter what. So it's either going to be empty getting utility costs, or there'll be somebody in it, because that building's in much better shape. That building's sitting on a park, so that building's going to go.
You're through this whole thing, you're getting rid of a lot of expenses.
We're getting rid of a lot of capital expenses. $6.2 million for buildings that have very, a smaller useful shelf life, or we have good alternatives where to put them.
Okay, so if you are saving those expenses, is there an impact on the property tax of people?
Well, so the impact is that again, these are capital expenses by and large, not operating expenses. So the impact is our capital budget. So as you know, we had $106 million of unfunded capital projects. So this takes. We'd have about 8 million more. Actually, the numbers I just gave you, 8.5 plus the Davidson Center, it would have been like 10 or $11 million of additional capital expenditures. Those aren't operating expenses, not year-on-year expenses, but that goes away from fixing roads, fixing parks, fixing all that other stuff. It's the stuff you need to do to keep your buildings in good repair. So yeah, that's where.
There is a positive.
Yeah, the positive is it gives us the ability to do other things without taking on debt or other issues. Well, I mean.
It comes from there.
Well, I mean, we had even with all those savings, we have $106 million of unfunded capital. So as you know, we passed a capital plan that included a couple of increases and a couple of decreases to try and offset some of that, right? So that's what we try to do, because we have to somehow fund that 106, but we would have 120 to fund if we didn't do that. So we'd have to do something else, or cut something else.
Mayor, as a public works director, I'm looking to how do I invest into the key buildings that we currently have? Sportsplex, Orland Fitness, Village Hall, all the buildings.
But I'm just saying, if you didn't consolidate the buildings, you'd have to get the money elsewhere.
We'd have to get $14 million that we don't have a plan for right now. We would have to find $14 million more dollars.
$14 million more.
$14 million more we would have to find.
Come out of
Something.
something which is probably.
Either we have to increase taxes 14 million more, or we have to make 14 million of cuts and delay something else, not fix roads, not fix parks. That's some of the decisions that were made in the past. And we're paying for some of that because things were kicked down the road. So, yeah.
Can we discuss the Eagle project for you? We can discuss this further. I mean, I like the idea of honoring the other boys from Orland Park who died in Vietnam, but when Timmy created this with the Zinn family and working with Roy Lombardo, who was Captain Zinn's commanding officer in Vietnam, it was created to honor Ron Zinn by himself. So can we, maybe you and I, or maybe have Timmy come in and sit down with you and discuss
Well,
this?
I'd be happy to discuss it with the Zinn family. I mean, I think that's the people that we should discuss it with, if anybody.
It's an Eagle project, Keith. He created it,
Well-
for Ron. Zinn, they're out of state. Jerry's in Iowa, and
So,
his sister-
like I said, we'll be happy to discuss it with them, but, at the end of the day,
can you change an Eagle project, though? I mean, that was the whole premise of it.
well, so, I'm just asking you the question, does that mean that everything stays here forever? Was there a covenant put in place that this land stays here forever?
No.
Okay, so understanding that, as Joel said, we'll find a way to move everything over there, and to honor all of our Vietnam vets, and honor the other two people who lost, other two Orland Park residents that lost their lives.
Okay, I think the biggest question, and I know a lot of them have it here, is, and I know you don't want to hear this one, and exactly what Margie was talking about too. Way back when, this building was dedicated to the American Legion, the VFW, and all the veterans of Orland Park. And we were told at that time, we were here in perpetuity until the last man stands. And that's where we're at, and that's why everybody's worried about this building. Is this building gonna be commercial, residential, you're gonna sell it off, what are you doing?
We don't know what this building's going to be. We will, like all of our properties, they'll be on the marketplace, but more than likely it gets demolished, and then we see what happens to it. But the reality is it's $400,000 versus $100,000. You got two buildings here. One building that has to stay is in good shape. One building that doesn't. And again, it's a village building. I don't know what the previous mayor said to you, but at the end of the day, we are providing a location with a bigger meeting space that is a newer building, more parking. The people of Orland Park don't have to do this. We provide all the utilities. We pay for all the maintenance. We pay for all the cleaning, the janitorial services. Joel's responsible for all that. None of that stuff comes cheap. The people of Orland Park are happy to do it. As a member of both posts, I am thankful that the people do this. So that's, and then all the memorabilia, anything, we'll replace it, we'll move it all. Anything that doesn't fit, we will keep in the museum and rotate with our other museum pieces, so they're not going to go away.
So when you talk about this expected construction and rehabilitation and operating costs until the year 2030, that's based on what?
It's based on a facility assessment
Yeah, we
done
did
by
a
an outside
facility
group.
assessment, so we looked at, just like your house, right? When do you need your roof done? Every 20 years, right? That roof's gonna have to happen, right? We have doors that have to get replaced, they're starting to corrode, and there's maybe tiled and bathrooms and everything like that. Everything has to be kept up,
Oh, I
just like
think
your
we
house.
understand. You're talking about basically $398,000 over the next 7 years versus $100,000 in expenditures for this building over the next year, correct? About your offer for the dollar, does the land come along with the building?
Right, the land and the building. It's the same thing we offered you in 2018.
How much taxes are required on the land?
I think you're a non-for-profit, so there's no taxes on the land.
No, it don't work that way.
So every non-for-profit that I know of churches, et cetera. They don't pay. The medical facilities, none of them pay. So not-for-profits don't pay.
So Joe, you would be willing to give our junior vice, who does a lot of our maintenance estimates, a detailed, thorough review of all that involved as what goes on into the building and what we would need to pay in order to keep the building and maintain it?
Sure.
You'd be willing to.
You're doing the $1 option.
Yeah, so we had an accounting actuarial with a CPA doing analysis, and he said if we bought the building, based upon the expenses, we would retire our colors in 4 to 5 years. So that buying the building for $1 seems very alluring, but staying in it past that time, if it meant for us to retire our colors, since we are one of the more vibrant posts in the southwest suburbs and have 165 members on our duty roster, that would be a disservice to our members to buy something which we couldn't maintain and have to retire our colors.
You don't have to do that. We have a location that's just like the location now shared with the VFW that you can go to. We will continue to operate the janitorial. We'll continue to operate all the maintenance. We'll continue to do all that. The $100,000 is, yeah, that's to build the storage facility. But after that, we have over the next 15 years. There's no projected long-term capital expenses because of the shape of the building. So we're saving.
Yeah, that building was built in 1992. This one's 76. It's been around here a long time.
So again, I mean, I'm not making a decision for either post. I'm just a member of the post. I'm making a decision for the village, giving an option and saying that if you want to stay, that's fine. And this is what we'll do. Obviously, there'll be a covenant that says you can't just turn around and sell it. Because we'd want it to continue to be either used for veterans or come back to the village.
So if you do close the door, I think the agreement would be it goes back to the village afterwards. You're done.
And I mean, as a member, I don't want to see that happen. We're offering a space.
Excuse me, why would we want to retire our colors? We're one of the oldest posts in the state of Illinois.
Who is? Wait. So nobody has said anything about retiring your colors. We've said you have a space that you can go to in perpetuity. Until, I mean, another board can change the building. Eventually that building may die too. The thing about that building is it's on a park. It's tied to a huge park. So that location isn't going anywhere. And we're talking, a useful life of what? At least another 30 years in that building. And this building doesn't have that. So we're offering you that opportunity. I'm just saying if you don't like the change, that's an option for you, is to stay here. It's not the option that I think is right for the Legion, but that's not my decision to make. So, but you have a space for the Legion, for the VFW, and then also there's space here for the Veterans' Voices for some storage. So there's some Veterans' Voices stuff there for just storage. And they said, hey, that's more storage than we have now. 200 square feet is just great. So,
when we met at the building,
Yes.
What we discussed with the storage, is that exactly what we have up there?
Yeah.
yeah, so you've got storage in the main floor, which I would assume would be uniforms and rifles and such.
Like I said, we pretty much.
Yeah, and then you've got 400 square feet here. I think what Joel said to me is one thing they'd do is they'd switch the Legion in the VFW and put the Legion with the overhead doors because they have a bunch of grills you guys don't have. They have some bigger stuff.
Yeah. So you can wheel out this is like the heavy stuff. You're not carrying it downstairs. You don't want it on the first floor anyways. It's stuff that you can wheel out to the parks, have your grills and other stuff in the garages, and then your lighter stuff in the basement, and then your things you use all the time during the main floor area.
We also have grills.
You have grills too? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we can adjust for that if we need to make another overhead door, if that's easier to do.
Okay, well, I just bring you that point out.
Great. Thank you.
When are you expecting the
So
I'll leave that to Joel.
we're doing the design. We're going to go into more of a construction documents for this year. We would then bid it out early in January and start the construction work. There's another building that the mayor talked about, the garage to work. So by the time that all worked out, it'll probably be late 2024. But moving during the winter is a little, not the greatest, but we're moving it. So we just need help to tell us what needs to be packed up nicely and carefully, and then you tell us how you want to lay out the rooms and all the stuff in the rooms. We just need that assistance. But that could be in the winter or the spring of 2025.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys want to let us know what the dates are for that. We're very accommodating for.
And this is just a sample configuration, we can configure it however.
Yes, you can, if you want more tables this way or that way, it's very flexible.
Real flexible.
Very flexible.
There'll be alarms on the building?
Yes.
Like this?
Yes, there will be alarms. Trying to think of, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when you guys all at bases, and you have the old building that no one really wants to be in anymore. It's just like that at those bases where they start moving people into the other buildings on the base. I know the Army Corps does it all the time with the Army, at Air Force bases and Army bases. In the Navy, and we do it in the Marine Corps, and we did it in the Navy base. That's what I did in there, Public Works at those bases. And we'd move people around on the bases, get people out of old buildings and put them into new buildings, newer buildings usually. So that's what we're really doing here. Unless, obviously, the other option is staying here for $1.
How many people are gonna be able to be in the facility at one time, the meeting? What's the maximum?
It'll be occupancy bigger than this. Well, the fire district will figure that out, but the square footage for the meeting space is bigger.
Right now, it's showing 30 chairs, which is approximately what you currently have, but if you want to get rid of some of the folding tables, you can expand that even more.
And if that becomes if that's that big of a concern, you could get rid of these two spaces, leave the uniforms and weapons upstairs in those, and have storage, because there is space upstairs also. You could leave that there, and you could create another, another couple hundred square feet right here.
That's the first floor.
First floor, I know.
Oh, yeah.
I say yes. So if it was that big of a concern, if you thought that this is not enough space, I mean, having been to these meetings, I mean, I think this is plenty of space. It's bigger than here. If you get rid of this,
We might be, we might be able to put it in the basement.
you know, you could, but you could also put it upstairs. So we could put it somewhere else if you felt that that extra 200 square feet was that necessary. I don't know that that I would think that's the case.
Can we get floor plans?
Those are the floor plans. So
I have
he's got some right there.
A smaller copy if you want, or a larger one if you want to look at.
Yeah, he brought extras.
What's the ceiling height in the basement?
It varies. So there is some he has to duck.
I'm 6'5".
Because you were hitting the ceiling.
I was hitting the ceiling because I'm 6'5", but there's some ducts in the middle, but other than the ducts, I want to say my height or lower, I could stay in there.
You were standing.
Yes, I wasn't hitting, it's just the duct area that you have
Is
to
that
duck
a
up.
heated area?
It is. Thank you, that's a good point too. It is heated, it's conditioned space, so you can
The
store.
additional garage?
Yes.
Is it gonna be heated like this one?
Right now, it's not. Because we have so much space in the basement, we thought we didn't need to, the grills don't need to be heated.
No.
But, because the uniforms would be here, I think you keep some of the uniforms, is what I understood in the garage. So I figured that'd be in the controlled space.
What's the chances of the membership being able to take a tour of the building? I think that would answer a lot of questions, maybe raise more, but sure give us a lot more knowledge.
I'm more than welcome to kind of schedule, you just, somebody please, I know, Tom, you have my email?
Yeah.
If that's something you guys want to do, let me know and I'll take you through.
Business is business.
I have no problem with that. I just got to schedule with the folks there. They don't mind. They understand that that's the plan.
If one of your members wants to reach out to Joel, he's more than happy to do that. And if he schedules it out, if he schedules a tour, he'll send it to you and Tom and to Veterans Voices and make sure that you know that there's a tour, and so anyone else who wants to join, so he doesn't have to come for 10 individual tours. That would be helpful.
And you have to visualize though a little bit because the walls will be gone.
Yeah.
Because there's offices currently there, and those will be demoed.
Same technology going to be available in that building as there is here?
Sure. What technology you're looking for?
Cable, Wi-Fi?
Yeah. What cable, Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
It's currently there now because of the offices.
Right,
So,
okay.
It might be better than what's there now. I'm not, because it's used all the time for our offices, so it's probably better.
or something like that. I don't know if you do that.
Every now and then.
So we might already have that over there too, projectors
Or
and
a
all that.
TV,
we
a
don't have
TV
now.
that you could plug in with your cables.
So, I'm assuming the building's handicap accessible.
It is. Continue with the
With the
question.
ramp, the ramp has a pretty good angle. It might be tough for people with walkers and canes. So,
If you go there today, right now, the ramp is gone, because.
that helps.
Because we had a plan this year to renovate that ramp.
Okay.
It was falling apart, so if you weren't there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was scary, to go up the ramp, so they're fixing that, and it's required to be ADA.
And it's all ADA compliant. Actually, it's more ADA compliant than this, building is, for sure. That's another big benefit, is that's ADA compliant and this is not.
So, there's also 3 trailers out here in the
Yes.
parking lot. Those will be accommodated.
I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. Yes, we will accommodate parking for the 3 trailers. We'll find a good spot.
Yeah. And there's tons of parking over there.
Okay.
One nice thing about that also is you'll have a maintenance team there continuously, so you'll have a little more visual presence so that, people don't mess around with the trailers, I don't know what they would do here. I think people leave them alone as well, right? So, but don't want anybody to vandalize them or anything like that. If not, we can always open a spot up in Public Works where you guys can come in and grab them as well, if that's a better site if you guys like that spot.
Is the parking exclusive for us in that building? Because I know with all the baseball fields and everything, people are gonna use those.
Yeah, so there's parking that will that are currently, if you go down there, there's some that wrap around the building. But there will be also all that parking along the park there, and a lot of folks, obviously a tournament that people park, but most of the time, that's always empty along that whole area. So we're talking 50, 60, parking spots available.
Yeah, the spots to the north are usually never taken by, at tournaments even, they'll go to the spots to the south, which are next to the park, right? So they're almost never on that side. Or they'll go over on the other side, over by the Village Hall, is where they'll tend to go, because you got fields over on
Some
this.
of those smaller buildings over at Bowley Farm?
Smaller buildings.
Those
Oh,
little
yeah,
cabins.
so eventually those 2 replica cabins are going to move to either Bowley Farm or Stellwagen. So, as is the Chipetti meat packing house, which is not in an original location either. So we're gonna move them so that people can see them in one location, as opposed to go see one building in 6 different places, go to one places and see all 6 of the buildings. It seems like get more traction that way than what they get now, which is almost none.
So I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but the sign out in front of the building, that'll be moved as well?
The sign will be moved, or alternatively, we'll build a new one that has the same functionality. So,
Yes, yeah, that's very important. So you guys can post when the meetings are at. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff, when you do the site, if there's anything that we will make some, those decisions right away, if there's some beautiful landscaping around that building already, with flowers and so forth like that. So it's pretty nice.
You have deer over there too.
Yeah.
So
But for some reason, they don't eat all of those flowers.
They what?
They don't eat those flowers. So.
there's a lot of flowers deer don't like, so. Mike knows which ones.
So the Veterans Commission only uses the building once or twice a month. We think this is fantastic. I think it's a positive thing for the village and all the veterans organizations.
My question was asked by
Perfect.
about the signage.
Signage, yes. Yep.
Digital sign, or we can just type that in?
No digital signs, that's not allowed all throughout the village. So,
The cabins are being relocated to?
Yes, that was what they're
Did I
talking
miss-
about.
oh, okay.
That's the historical cabins. They will Those are just replicas.
Right,
And
well,
so-
people don't go to visit those anymore, so the parking won't be taken up by people
No.
visiting those.
No, but they're going to move to either Boley or Stellwagen so that there's more to see at those locations.
And the timing is kind of nice too, if you guys ever get a chance to go there, the Humphrey Woods, we have a 3-year project, and we've been slowly removing all the invasive species, and those woods are being cleaned up. So it's been a huge effort from our natural resource team to kind of clean up that woods area too. So, a lot of good things at the site there. Sorry, this is a side note, but I don't know if you guys care about the woods.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mayor, when all of this is finalized, okay, and anyway, is this gonna be all written down step by step in the form of a contract agreement?
Well, there's no contract because, again, this is a village building that we allow everyone to use. There's no contract, but we've already approved the moving over there. We've already approved in the budget the storage facility and all of that. And Joel's working with you to make sure that all the configuration meets your needs. And so, we're going to, do what we agree to.
Also, maybe 20 or 30 years from now, the new mayor, could that change their rules?
Well, new mayor will be here sooner than 20 or 30 years because I term limited myself. Any board can change the rules, okay? My experience, when I tried to change the golf outing, the 6 board members tried to get rid of the golf outing. To be blunt, one power they couldn't take away from me was putting it on the agenda, and there's no way any of them would publicly vote against the veterans. So that's why it stayed, okay? And the same thing, they were going to try and get rid of the veterans services. And the same thing, I said, do we want to go through this again? Because I'm just going to put it back on the board floor. And they said, nah, and they just kind of left it alone. So, the current makeup of the board, that's certainly not going to change. I can't imagine it's going to change anytime soon, but I can't predict 30 years from now. 30 years from now, I probably won't be here anymore. So, likely won't even be on the planet anymore. So, so I can't speak to what people will do then. I don't even know what the Chicagoland area will look like 30 years from now. So.
Is that building gonna be sprinkled?
Is it sprinkled? I don't think it's sprinkled, but at the same time, I don't.
That was a good one.
Sprinkled as far as the interior part of the building, or the exterior?
Whatever.
You done landscaping or
Fire.
fire?
I think it's the
It is probably not because it's probably under the size, just like this one.
And the architect's gonna have to know that we store ammunition, and the room that's stored is gonna have to be pretty safe in case of explosion.
Well, yeah, you store bullets, so yeah, it's not you're and blanks, so you're not storing grenades. So so bullets are fine. You can store those in a closet. Or on the kitchen
Good
table.
point, that's good to know.
But we'll make sure that
We
it's
want
all
to make
set
sure
up.
that room, when we divide it, we'll have that space for that.
Go ahead.
At what point, you said you could still make some adjustment, when do you anticipate like a final floor plan? And will we have any input on that?
If you have some input now, that'd be great, so I can get it back to the AD. Let me know, because we do want to kind of get into the construction documents, so it's no longer, it's a schematic with some walls here. But we really need to put it into construction documents so the contractor or our staff can do the work,
So if you have any other input or changes, just on that, let us know. Village Orland Park Veteran Center.
You said it's got a full kitchen.
It does.
Now, how much room does that take up?
The whole north end of the building.
It takes this section right here.
Much bigger than the one you got here.
Oh, yes.
So,
You can walk.
and you could put tables in there if you want to sit and what have you.
Looking at this here now, if you can't quite see that.
Just to confirm, the village board has already approved the move?
Yeah, we've approved the capital plan for the next 5 years. Obviously, they're still budgeting every year to approve the money, but we've approved the capital plan for the next 5 years, and I don't foresee the capital plan for next year and the money and the budget for next year, because that's a lot more firm and solid than 2 years or 3 years from now. But we have a 5-year plan that includes all the capital needs we have, all the funding for those capital needs, and barring something, I mean, you know, COVID could hit and we could lose $8 million in revenue. The state could take away the remaining part of our revenue share, and we could lose $7 million a year. I mean, that could all happen, right? And that could change things, but it's not going to change for next year. So next year, this is going to get done. So
What's the timeline for all this from where we're at right now?
well, this will be done next year.
Next year, we'll finish renovations, and then we'll coordinate when we want to do the move over and coordinate with there. So it could be end of the year or the beginning of 2025.
So that's
And we'll just keep communicating with you guys, so you kind of know the progress. If you guys want to walk through and the construction's finished, you know, you could also do that, you know, just to prep.
And we have a lot of, I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on, right? You have Centennial Park West, you've got Schuschler Park, those are going to get done in the spring. You've got the police firing range is getting done during that time frame. We're also starting, I believe we're starting the Public Works facility, correct, Joel?
Yes, the first phase.
We're doing the first phase of the Public Works, and I think next year as well, we're starting in the rec building.
The following year.
Oh, the following year? But we start moving people to the rec building and doing some configuration changes in there, and then the following year we reconstruct. So a lot of that stuff's in place already. You know, road programs are already in place. Like I said, next year I don't anticipate any changes to our capital plan for next year since we just approved it. There's not going to be a lot of changes in the next 4 months. For the following years, we could see some sliding and moving. Some of that due to, could be funding, but it could also be that, hey, we don't get the approvals we need or expected grants that we're expecting to get or something like that that may slide something back. Or, you know, sometimes there's just stuff that happens that moves some of our capital stuff. But this is pretty much locked in for next year. And like I said, the board already approved it. I can't see the board really changing our capital plan significantly.
This is the entrance.
So just to be clear, the new building would have shared space for all three organizations, that all the space would be shared?
You'll have individual, for storage, you'll have individual lockable areas.
Okay.
The main shared space is similar to this
The
here.
main shared spaces, the meeting room, the
Okay,
kitchen,
so like
that
the
area.
meeting room and the kitchen and stuff like that, that's all.
That's all
Kind
shared.
of like the color. I'll leave this up so you can come up later if you want to see, but yeah, the color is like the individual areas for different groups.
Okay.
Where did you put the swimming pool?
Yeah.
That's about 1.5 miles away over at Centennial Park West. And if you're a member, you get to enter an hour earlier.
I overheard what they were talking about. The main entrance from the ramp is on this side, and there's a door here, and you come in here. On this side, there's some stairs, only 2, but if that's something you would want to come that way. But the ramp is on the east side. Thank you. Here. East side. And so you can just come in.
What's the restroom facilities?
Yeah, there's 2 bathrooms right here.
On the east side.
Right here, similar to, probably the same size, a little bit, about the same size. And there's men's and women's.
Gail?
The Brown dedication is still on the, well, it isn't a dedication, this building was originally named after George
Yeah, I
Brown.
remember.
Which you know that, so,
George Brown used to give me money for knowing the right Hawks players with their numbers when I was 3 and 4 years old. So
Well, you
I remember
guys-
Mr. Brown well.
when this was dedicated to the veterans a long time, many years back, I helped with all of that, but the Brown family were concerned that the Brown name was gonna come off of the building. And they were sure that, no, the Brown name wasn't gonna come off the building. If they do choose to approach you later on this, maybe they could have a plaque, a dedication plaque on the inside of the building or something, I'm just getting you prepared.
So like we had the Davidson Center, okay, and the Davidson Center came down, right? And prior to being the Davidson Center, it was just known as the administration building. So unfortunately that happens, but in Mr. Brown's case, he actually has a park named after him as well. So there is a park that's already named after him. So I think his name will still continue on because we do have Brown Park that's there for him. So So I don't think, and believe me, I remember him well, and you know, my dad was very close friends with him and his wife, so.
Which is the main entrance?
The main entrance is by right here. That's where the ADA accessible and all that, and this is the back entrance with a couple of stairs. Any other questions?
I want to thank you and the board for taking care of the veterans
Oh, you're welcome.
and the village. We appreciate it.
And I want to be clear, you know, I mean, staff came with a recommendation to, you know, for a separate, just putting you in, giving you space to have your meetings. And I don't hold that against staff, because we said, hey, you need to tell us, you know, how much usage, how much expense, all that. You need to come to us with a plan to reduce, you know, as much as you can the cost. And so from that directive, they did what we asked. It is our job as the board to say, okay, thank you, but we think this is important for the people of Orland Park. It's important for our veterans group. It's something that the community takes pride in. So let's find a different solution. And Joel was like right on the spot, like within 5 minutes, he's like, I got it. So, so I want to thank Joel in particular for this, and then for all the staff for continuing to help throughout this.
We want that to continue in perpetuity, right? I'm a vet, I get it, right? We want to take care of the next.
And he's an Orland Park resident.
We want to take the next wave of vets, you know, as well, you know? Who's fighting now, right? Will there be a place for them in the future that they can be part
And there will be more consolidation, as we know, amongst you know, anyone who's in these organizations. There's going to be more consolidation. Well, you have a place that the village is providing, so hopefully those continue to consolidate. So keep in mind, the village residents are not just doing this for Orland Park veterans, right? They're doing it for all the veterans of the region, because a lot of the membership that we have do not live in Orland Park. So, so it's important. It was important to us. It was important to the whole board. There was no pushback or anything on any of this. They thought it was a great idea. Someday he'll retire and he'll be, you know, he'll be commander of one of the posts. I'm already putting him on the hook since he's a young guy.
And he joined first.
Any other?
The two storage units.
Yes, the garage.
No, the other.
Outside.
The inside?
Yeah.
Could they be put side by side and
They are.
open up that area?
So he's saying put them here, like this, and so open up this area bigger, so that this is a bigger common space and not as much of an L shape. I think that's
We have a
doable.
good meeting, there's more than 30 people show up for our meetings.
Right, you would need that area.
You're saying you could expand this seating?
Yeah.
They'd have a better sightline.
Yeah, I think that's I don't think that's a problem.
I just gotta figure out how to, bring that wall into where a window's at. So, you know, you don't want a wall right smack in the window. Not the greatest design. So we'll look at that, but let me look at that with the architect. Thank you.
Okay.
I think maybe it's this.
Maybe it's here and here. We'll look at it.
Got it.
Thanks.
That was the biggest concern, because like you say, you need to see 30 seats there, and some of our meetings, you got 30 to 40 people in here. So,
Yeah. And ideally, then you would just, you know.
Add the seats back here, so you're gonna have,
Keep on adding.
you're gonna have room for like 54 seats or so.
Left-hand side, then there would be, no one would have a sight problem with the sightline.
So,
Yeah, there's a way maybe to configure the room, you know, how you would like to set up the chairs.
but yeah, but this room here is 100 square feet bigger than this room here.
I think
So
we
it is
all
bigger.
learned how to stand the formations, and you just gotta figure out the shape of the formation it would be, you know, with chairs, so.
Any other questions?
Just one comment, to make sure I understand this right. It's, you're gonna save $14 million in capital and expenses over time for a building that's depreciating and probably has lost its useful life. This seems like a no-brainer.
That's why we did it. We,
Am I looking at that?
I mean, all of these decisions, I think, all of the building decisions that we just talked about were no-brainers from the village's perspective. They were pretty
I'm seeing
obvious.
this correctly, right? Because I'm thinking you're saving $14 million over time. on
Yeah,
capital.
that's not just this building, that's all the buildings, but
A
yes.
building that depreciates, and hell, I get rid of my car every 5 years because it falls apart and it costs too much.
It just,
I mean, it's the same thing.
when the buildings are like this one, it's 50 years old, now it becomes very, very expensive to maintain, et cetera. Now, some buildings like the Village Hall, because it's so big, you're gonna continue to, invest in, but. That's exactly right. So that's why we made the decision. It wasn't, obviously, we're moving to moving everything to another building because that was important to us. That was important to me, and the board all supported.
The questions about how you move around the floor plan, it's just,
Right.
just things to argue through, but the actual doing it seems like, I don't know what we're arguing about.
I think that, as I've found since being mayor, most of these kinds of decisions, once you get all the facts on the table, become fairly obvious if you have the same goal, which our goal is obviously to do what's best for the overall village residents, and then we try to keep in mind who's impacted by it and try to minimize that impact as much as possible, which I think we've done. So that's the goal. Okay, any other questions? Ron just wants to get done. You see his meetings, they're like boom, 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 out of here.
I think you can still go stuff.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for coming. And I know the Legion has a meeting coming up, so some of you are sticking around, so thanks. And I'll be sticking around also. But those were great questions. Hopefully we answered them all. And, and if you have any ideas for Joel, let him know. So, all right, thanks, everybody.